Hi, and welcome to part 3 of Lola Rose by Jacqueline Wilson, continuing from chapter 6, Spending the Money. Let's go on the razzle again, said Mum the minute I woke up. She was already up and dressed. It didn't look as if she'd slept a lot, but she didn't act tired. We razzled till we dazzled. We bought new tops, new trousers, new night things and new shoes. Oh, those new shoes, wonderful strappy sling-back stilettos for Mum, and my first pair of proper grown-up heels too. They were only little heels, but I still couldn't cross the room in them without twisting my ankles. Who cares, said Mum. You'll be fine with a little bit of practice. All set to go dancing, eh? She bought a little CD player and a stack of her favourite CDs. We had our own private disco in the hotel bedroom during the day when the vacuums were roaring, and it didn't matter how much noise we made. Mum especially liked I Will Survive. She danced to it, punching her arms in the air, and Kendall and I copied her. The maid came in to clean our bedroom and saw us dancing. She roared with laughter and imitated us, punching her own arms. That's it, you tell them, girl, she said. She was a very, very large lady, but she was surprisingly good at dancing, jiggling her hips and strutting her stuff. Wasn't that lady fat? Kendall whispered when she'd gone. She went wibble wobble wibble wobble. If you think she was fat, you should see her Auntie Barbara. Well, your Auntie Barbara, said Mum. Your sister, I said. I poked Mum gently in her flat-as-a-pancake tummy. But you're skinny. Yep, said Mum. We're complete opposites in every way. I always used to wonder if we had different dads. Our dad couldn't stick me right from the start. Did you ask him? No fear. He'd have given me a clump around the head for cheek, said Mum. She bit her thumb again. What is it about me, eh? Why do all the men in my life want to thump me? What am I doing wrong? You're not doing anything wrong, Mum. It's them, not you. But you're not you now anyway. You're Victoria, and I'm Lola Rose, and he's Kendall, and we're the lucky family. I put the music on again, and whirled Mum round and round, while Kendall did his little jiggle stomp with George. It was just as well he was so keen on George. Poor Bubble had died in the night. Kendall wanted to bury him properly in a shoebox, but Mum said she wasn't mucking about with dead goldfish, and tipped Bubble down the toilet. We had to go back to that awful aquarium every day to keep Kendall happy, visiting the real George and his horrific fishy friends. I stayed outside on the embankment. People kept stopping to talk to me, asking if I was all right. I was scared they might fetch a policeman. And any time a tall guy with long hair and a leather jacket came loping along, my heart would thump even though I could see they were all strangers. Come in with us, you daft banana, said Mum. But I couldn't. I was far too scared of those sharks. I dreamed about those gaping jaws every night. I kept waking up, shaking. Mum was often sitting up smoking, curled in a chair in the dark. I'd squash up beside her, and we'd cling together while Kendall snored softly, cuddled under the covers with George. One night I woke with a start and reached for Mum. She wasn't in the bed. She wasn't in her chair. I found her kneeling in the bathroom, handbag in her lap, £5 notes all around her in unsteady piles. Show me the money, I whispered, to try to make her laugh. But she wasn't in a jokey mood. Her face was screwed up, a big vein standing out on her forehead. Somebody's stolen some of it, she said, sniffing furiously. They can't have done. You carry it around everywhere where you go, I said. Mum always clutched the handbag tightly in case someone made a snatch at her bag. She wouldn't even hide it in the hotel room when we went out to breakfast. How can someone have stolen it? Don't ask me. I just know they bloody have. There's hundreds and hundreds gone missing. We've spent a lot, I said, kneeling down beside Mum and starting to count the notes. Not that much. I got a piece of paper and wrote down all the clothes we'd bought, all the meals and treats and rides, all the ordinary everyday stuff like ice creams and Mum's ciggies and bus fares. It started to add up to hundreds and hundreds. And we had the night out with Dad, and the taxi and the train fare to London, and the first hotel. And we still got to pay this one too, said Mum. Oh, God. I don't think anyone's stolen any, Mum. We've just spent it. Right, OK, you've made your point. We've spent it. Mum snapped as if it was all my fault. So, Miss Cleverclogs, what are we going to do when the money runs out altogether? I tried to think. My brain wouldn't work. I never knew what to do when Mum turned on me. Maybe it won't run out for ages if we're careful, I said. We could move to a smaller hotel and eat sandwiches and not go to the aquarium. Yes, but then what? Are we going to sit indoors, in doorways and beg? What happens if the police catch us? They'll want you and Kenny back in school, won't they? They'll send you home to your dad. I started crying. Mum started crying too. She put her arms around me. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I didn't mean it. Of course you won't get sent home. We won't, any of us, have to go home, will we, Mum? No way, darling. We can't go back. Your dad was always quite clear what he'd do if I ever tried to leave him. Mum was shivering in her thin nightie. I'm scared. Me too, sweetheart. Then Mum took a deep breath. No, sod it. I'm not going to be scared. I'm Lady Luck now, right? And my luck's changed. Hey, maybe I'd better buy some more scratch cards. That's what we'll do. Buy a whole load of scratch cards every day, and eventually we'll get lucky again. I didn't know if Mum meant it. It seemed a crazy idea, but I couldn't come up with anything better. We went back to bed, and it took me ages to get to sleep. Then I swam among sharks, but when I awoke, Mum was already up, dressed in a new blouse and skirt, and her white leather jacket. She was pacing the floor in her new high heels. I wished I could walk properly in mine. I tried to wear them out and turned my ankles so badly the heel snapped straight off the shoe. Mum said we could take them back and get a replacement. Can we see about my shoes today, Mum? Maybe, if we've got time. We're not going boring old shopping again, are we? Kendall said, sitting up in bed, his hair stuck up like a dandelion fluff. Can we go and see Big George being fed, Mum? Perhaps, Pet, but we've got a lot else to do today. We're going to start getting organised, right? I'm going to get a job, find us a place to live, and get you two into schools. Simple, said Mum, laughing. Kendall thought it really was simple, and laughed too. I knew it wasn't simple at all. I was so worried I couldn't eat much breakfast, though Mum told us to tuck in. Mum didn't eat anything at all. She just had cup after cup of tea, going sip, sip, sip. Her voice still sounded dry and croaky when she asked for our bill at the reception desk. She went white when she saw how much it was, but she counted out the £5 notes as nonchalantly as she could. Then we went upstairs to pack. We had to nip out to the shops for another suitcase because we'd bought so much. The nice fat maid was hoovering the corridor when we came back. Mum told her we were going and tucked a couple of £5 notes in her pocket. Thanks for looking after us so well, she said. It's been a pleasure. I shall miss you ever so, she said, stooping with difficulty to give Kendall a big hug. She put her arm around me too and cuddled me close. You're a lovely girl, Lola Rose, she said. Have you enjoyed your holiday? I looked at Mum. We're not exactly on holiday, said Mum. She raised her eyebrows significantly. Aha, said the maid. I get you. We're going to make a new life for ourselves, said Mum. I'm going to need to find some work. There aren't any maid's jobs going here, are there? Well, I could find out, she said, but it's a rubbish job, dear, especially for a pretty little thing like you. The money's lousy and very few people give a handsome tip like you did. You could get a good office job somewhere really smart. What you trained for? I'm not trained for anything. I used to do a bit of modelling. There, I said you were pretty, said the maid, but I've gone off a bit. I couldn't get that sort of work now, not after having 2 kids, and I'm not that great at computers or figures or stuff. I don't think I could work in an office. I'd just get in a muddle. Mum nibbled at her thumbnail. Well, it strikes me office work would get boring, she said comfortingly. You seem like a people person. Maybe shop work might be more in your line, showing off pretty clothes. Well, maybe, said Mum, still biting her thumb. There's the tills, though. I don't know how you work them. Honestly, I'm just so thick. No, you're not, Mum, I said, patting her. It wasn't her fault. Dad never let her do anything. He kept on telling her she was thick, thick, thick as a brick, and she believed him. Don't worry, Pet. They'll teach you, said the maid. They'll give you training. They even trained me how to make a bed, though I've been making 6 a day all my adult life. 6? My family? Well, there's 8 now, because my Junie's here with my little grandson Marvin. Bless him. Though his little cot don't count. So you don't live in the hotel, said Mum. I thought if I got a job as a maid, then they'd let me have a room for me and the kids. You're not much more than a kid yourself, she said. The staff don't live in here. They'd never let you keep the children here anyway. Look, maybe you should go down to the social. No fear. I'm not having them poking their noses into my past. They won't. They'll help. Still, maybe you know best. Are you going to put yourself down on the housing list? I don't see how we can. I mean, I lived in a council flat back home. I had to walk out, see, but they'll say I deliberately made myself homeless, and I'm scared that they take the kids into care. Well, try one of the special housing associations. They found my sister Elise a lovely place when she left her husband. Well, she's made it lovely now, her and all her kids. Shall I give her a quick ring? Find out the association address for you. It's a charity, but they don't make you feel bad, and they never try to take your kids away. Anyone can see you're a brilliant mum. She was so kind, Mum tried to give her more money, but she wouldn't take it. She stowed our bags away when we got packed up and kissed us all and wished us luck. You're going to be lucky in life from now on, I can tell, she said. Mum's face lit up. Yeah, that's me, Lady Luck, she said. She took me by one hand and Kendall by the other, and we set off. Mum sang all the lucky songs she could think of while we got the tube to the housing association place. We were on the tube so long it was like we'd made a journey into the centre of the earth. When we emerged at last, I pretended to Kendall that we were in Australia now and told him to watch out for koalas and kangaroos. And sharks, said Kendall. They have sharks in the sea in Australia. Let's go to the seaside. Will you quit winding him up, Lola Rose? Mum snapped. She was looking at the tacky parade of shops and the scattered French fries on the pavement and the boys goofing around outside the video shop. It's a bit of a dump, isn't it? Maybe it's a bit daft wanting to live here. There must be heaps of housing associations. Yeah, but it's so out of the way, Mum. It feels kind of safe. Dad would never come looking for us here, would he? And yet all the time we're wandering around the West End, you feel there's a chance he might come barging around the corner. I want Dad to come around the corner, said Kendall. I want Dad. I want to go home. I don't like Australia. It's not Australia, you nut, I said, laughing at him. It was just a joke. Don't joke, Janie, said Kendall, and he started hitting me with his fists, with George, with his hard little head. Hey, ouch, stop it, Kendall, I said, scooping him up and whirling him around and round. I could usually cheer him out of a tantrum but it didn't work this time. He just sobbed dismally. Don't, Kendall, I said, shifting him onto my hip. I'm Kenny, he wept. Poor little kid. He doesn't know who he is or where he's going, said Mum. You shouldn't have got him all wound up with that Australia lark. I know, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Kendall. Kenny! No, not any more, said Mum, cupping his damp face and looking straight into his eyes. This bit isn't a joke, darling. You and me and Janie, we've all run away. Run away for good. We've run away from your dad because he kept hitting me. Because you were bad, said Kenny. Mum's not bad, you stupid little boy, I said, giving him a shake. Leave him be, Janie. He's only parroting your dad. He doesn't really mean it, said Mum. Now listen, sweetheart. No one deserves to get hit. You shouldn't ever hit anyone. You're a good boy, and Janie's a good girl, and I'm not going to risk either of you getting hurt. So we're starting our new life, and we're going to make it work, right? Right, I said. I nudged Kendall. Say right. Wrong, Kendall mumbled into the pink fur of my denim jacket, but now he was joking. He behaved like a little lamb in the Housing Association office. I'm Kendall Luck, and I'm 5 years old, he announced to everyone. His eyelashes were still wet, and his little peaky face looked very earnest. Everyone smiled and said, bless him. It was Kenny who got us a home. We waited for ages, and then a lady with glasses took down all our details. Mum was fine at first, making up all sorts of stuff, sounding so convincing even though she was going nibble on her thumbnail. But then we were led into another big room full of waiting people. It took another age before it was our turn to see anyone, and then Mum had to start all over again, saying the same stuff to a man with a beard while he filled in another form. I knew Mum wouldn't be able to remember every little detail of her story. She'd be making it up as she went along. She had a stab at it, gabbling quicker and quicker to get over with, but she got stuck when they asked her about schools. She made up a name before and they'd written it down. Mum tried to remember it, a vein standing out on her forehead. She looked at me desperately. Tell them the name of your school, Janie, she said. Janie. I started saying something quick, but the man wasn't listening. He put down his pen. Janie, he said. He looked at me. I thought you were called Lola. She is. Lola Rose. Janie's just a silly nickname. Janie Paney. We've called her that for fun since she was little, Mum said. It was clear the man with the beard didn't believe a word she was saying. Mrs. Luck, I get the feeling you've been a little economical with the truth, he said. Some of your details don't quite add up. You need to be completely frank with us about your previous domestic circumstances. Now, I'm sure you've got your reasons. Yes, I've got my bloody reasons, said Mum, going red. She yanked at her blouse and showed the man the bruises, still as purple as pansies. We're running away from the guy who did this to me, right? He started on his daughter too. There'll be no stopping him now. I'm trying to make a fresh start and do my best for my kids. There's no going back. He'll kill us. Have you been to the police? Mum snorted. What are they going to do? Lock him up? For how long? And what about his mates? And what happens when he's let out? What happens to us then? I take your point, Mrs. Luck. I do understand. No, you don't. You can take my point and shove it straight up your bottom, said Mum, standing up. I suppose you're not going to find us somewhere to live now. That sort of abuse isn't helpful, certainly. I will still try to help you, but I can't work miracles. I'll put your family on our waiting list. And what are we supposed to do meanwhile? Sit in the gutter for 6 months? Mum called him a very, very rude name and then stood up. Come on, kids, we're going. This is a waste of time. Kenny looked at his hands. He looked at the chair he'd been sitting on. He looked under it. His mouth went into a letterbox shape, and he started howling. He howled and howled and howled. He wouldn't stop when I picked him up. He wouldn't stop when Mum picked him up. He wouldn't stop when the lady with glasses brought him a biscuit. What's the matter with him? Said the bearded man. He can't take any more, Mum bellowed above the wails. It's all too much for him. We've been on the run for weeks now. I promised him I'd get him a home today. He just wants to feel safe. Everyone fussed over Kendall and looked at the bearded man as if he were deliberately torturing my little brother. Luckily, Kendall was crying too hard to draw breath and say what it was he wanted. Well, I suppose we might be able to put you in the emergency category. There is a property available. It's not ideal and it's not in good decorative order, but it'll act as a stopgap. We were given the key to our new home just like that. We had to whiz Kenny away sharpish before he started going on about George. We hunted for him all the way down the road, back to the station, but we didn't catch a glimpse of furry Finn. He must have been left on the tube. Mum took Kenny into the hotel to thank the lovely fat lady and collect our suitcases. She furtively pressed 3 fivers into my hand. She didn't have to tell me what to do. I ran all the way to the aquarium, begged to be let straight into the gift shop, and bought George the Second. Chapter 7. Our New Home. Our new home was the middle flat of a small, damp Edwardian house, with a tarpaulin over the roof and nettles rioting in the garden. The front door was warped, so we had to put our shoulders against it before it would budge. The hallway was littered with freebie papers and advertising circulars, so we had to kick our way through them. Our flat was up 1 flight of stairs. We had a living room with a kitchen area in one corner, a tiny bedroom, and a toilet with a shower and basin. The walls were a dirty cream like sour milk, with black mould in the corners. The windowsills were wet with condensation, the wood soft and rotten. The curtains hung limply against the damp glass. There was a stained carpet covering most of the living room floor and a greasy cooker in a fridge, but no proper furniture. Mum and Kendall and I walked around the flat. We walked round it again. "Where is everything?" Kendall asked. "You may well ask," said Mum. She looked like she was going to start crying any minute. "Where is everything?" I said quickly, copying Kendall. She frowned at me, and then cottoned on. "You may well ask," she said. "Where is everything?" Kendall and I chorused. "You may well ask," said Mum. We went through this crazy routine over and over again, rushing round the room, gabbling it faster and faster, until the words became gobbledygook. We ended up in a giggly heap on the carpet. "Oh, quick, get up, kids. It's so dirty," said Mum, pulling her face. "We'll have to get carpet shampoo and lots of flash, and 3 scrubbing brushes, and we'll buy some paint, brighten the place up. What colour, Lola Rose?" Purple." "Purple? OK, blow it, purple it is. We can have a purple bedroom, bed, carpet, rug, curtains. We can even paint you purple and all, if that's what you want. And a purple living room. No, it's my turn. I rather fancy a black and white theme, dead stylish, white walls, black leather furniture with a zebra-striped rug on the floor, and I'll recline in it on a black negligee. Yeah? Eating black and white humbugs, Kendall. Or are you going to choose the bathroom colours? You could have turquoise like your horrible aquarium. We'll have a big glass tank for a bath, and you can swim around inside it with George." "Don't start him off," said Mum. "She's just joking, Kendall." "What about my purple bedroom, Mum? Is that a joke too?" "No, we're going to do a total changing rooms on this old dump, I promise you, darling. Money no object. Well, within reason. We were told about this special charity stores place where you got given all kinds of furniture if you were in need. Mum still had wads and wads of lottery money left, but she started to worry about it now. We did go into town to look for furniture, but one big squashy leather 3-piece suite was £3,000. Blow that for a lark. We'll see what these stores have got. If it's all a lot of flea-infested old rubbish, then we'll just say no thanks, right?" said Mum. But we said yes, please. Yes, please. We even got a black leather sofa. It was old and cracked, but it still looked lovely. We found 2 black velvet chairs that almost matched, and a fluffy rug that came up white after a good scrubbing. We got a double bed too, though Mum bought a brand new mattress because she said she felt funny about sleeping in someone else's bedding. She bought a deep purple duvet cover just to please me and spent a whole day painting the walls lilac. I made her a special card with some of my best Victorian scraps, a big bright heart and bunches of lilies and roses and a host of angels swooping up and down like bungee jumpers. I wrote inside, "You are an angel, Mum. XXX from Lola Rose," and I stuck a big red rose in beside my name. Kendall added a wobbly K and his own kisses. I put it in a proper envelope and then pretended it had been delivered by the postman. We didn't get any real post because no one knew where we were. No one knew us at all. This wasn't like a holiday anymore. This was our new life. I kept thinking about my old life and my old friends. They think it's so weird that I'd vanished into thin air. Thick air. Mum was smoking more and more to steady her nerves. Our flat was grey with smoke haze. It made me cough, but Mum said I was putting it on. Maybe I was, just a little bit. Kendall coughed a lot too, but that was because he cried a lot. I suppose he was missing Dad. He often called out for him when he woke up in the night. Sometimes he didn't wake up quite quick enough and wet the bed. Mum threatened to put Kendall back in nappies if he did it again. He did, so Mum tucked a towel into his pants. Kendall howled with humiliation. "You shouldn't get so cross with him, Mum. He can't help it. He's just upset." "Yeah, well, I shall be upset if he ruins that brand new mattress, and you can stop being so mealy-mouthed Miss Goody-Goody Two-Shoes," said Mum. "You don't get half get on my nerves sometimes, Janie." "Lola Rose." Okay, Lola flipping fancy pants Rose. Just you remember, I'm your mum. Stop acting like you're my big sister, for God's sake. You're not meant to tell me what to do. I'll do what I like, see? Mum looked in her handbag for her cigarettes. The packet was empty. Oh, bum. Run down the road to the corner shop, Lola Rose. It's gone 10, Mum. It'll be shut. It had taken hours to settle Kendall. He'd had one of his crying fits. He was still snuffling in his sleep. Mum bit her thumbnail agitatedly. For God's sake, I'm not going all night without a fag. I'm gasping. Look, there must be a pub somewhere. I'll nip out and buy myself some cigarettes from the machine. You go to bed, okay? Okay, I said uncertainly. I didn't want her to go out in the dark by herself, just in case something happened to her. You'll be fine, silly, Mum said, not understanding. If there's any emergency, then go and get someone in the house to help. Maybe not the old lady. She's a bit gone in the head, but the lads up above seem fine. We'd got to the stage of nodding at our new neighbours. Miss Parker, the old lady, proved a real nosy Parker and asked all kinds of questions. We got worried, but she asked the exact same questions the next day and the next. It was obvious she didn't remember a word we told her. Steve and Andy, the two men who lived in the flat above us, looked a bit peeved the first time we met them. We were coming up the stairs loaded with shopping bags from Tesco. Kendall was howling because he'd fallen over. Mum was shouting at him for being a big baby. I was moaning because there had been a special offer on Sara Lee chocolate cake, and she wouldn't buy it. We were probably making quite a lot of noise. Mum stopped shouting and smiled at Steve, the tall, handsome one. Andy, the smaller guy with glasses, said hi to Kendall and me and helped us haul the shopping bags through to our kitchen. He told us their names. I said I was Lola Rose. Steve raised his eyebrows, but Andy said he thought it was a beautiful name. Steve acted like he was too grand to talk to us. He did seem too grand for this dump of a house. Andy was much more matey and told us how their old flat had been repossessed, and so they'd had to come here. On a temporary basis, said Steve. But we've still made it into our little home, said Andy, and I love the way you've done up your flat, Lola Rose. It looks really great, especially the purple bedroom. Very artistic. I liked Andy much more than Steve. I still didn't think I could rush to him in an emergency, though. I hated that word. The moment Mum left our flat, emergency flashed in my mind like neon lighting. Phantom alarms clanged in my head. My heart went thud, thud, thud inside my chest. It was very quiet in the flat. We didn't have a television yet, so I couldn't switch it on to make things sound normal. Miss Parker's telly buzzed down below, as if people were whispering bad things about me beneath my feet. Steve and Andy walked around upstairs, and every time their floorboards creaked, I jumped. I kept going to check the door to make sure it was locked. I imagined someone was outside, listening, ready to shove his shoulder to the door and come bursting in. I peered out into the garden to make sure no one was creeping up on us. I could only see my own face, reflected in the glass. It reminded me of the aquarium. I shut the curtains quick. I wanted to huddle into a ball on the old leather sofa. No, I wanted to hide behind it like a really little kid, but Kendall was in the bedroom, and I had to keep an eye on him. I considered climbing into bed beside him, but I didn't want to take my clothes off and lie down in the dark. I needed to be fully dressed and on my toes. I patrolled the flat. It still seemed horribly empty. Even now we had the stuff from the stores. It only took a few seconds to check each room. It didn't really help. When I was in the bedroom, I was sure someone was lurking in the living room, slyly cracking open a can of beer, sitting there on the sofa waiting. When I was in the living room, I felt someone might have got behind the door in the bathroom, ready to pounce. When I dared go into the bathroom, pushing the door inch by inch, I was sure someone had climbed through the bedroom window and was pulling Kendall out of bed, hand over his mouth to stop him screaming. I knew Dad didn't know where we were. How could he possibly track us down? But I was still so scared I had to put on my new furry denim jacket to stop myself shivering. "Come back, Mum," I whispered, over and over. She wasn't back by 10:30. Maybe she'd had to walk a long way to find a pub with a cigarette machine, though she was wearing her strappy sandals with high stiletto heels, so she couldn't walk that far. I waited and waited, staring at the clock. I started nodding my head in time to the tick and tock until I went dizzy. I tried to read one of Mum's magazines, but the words jiggled about on the page and wouldn't make sense. I got my scrapbook out and started cutting out a lovely picture of a girl rock star with long blonde hair and a jewelled navel and shiny brown legs in white leather boots. The floorboards gave a sudden creak, and I cut off one of the boots by mistake. I tried to sellotape it back, but it made her leg look wonky. My own legs felt wonky as I paced the flat. It was gone 11 now. The pub's closed then, so where was Mum? "Something's happened to her," said the voice of doom. 11:15. 11:30. I didn't know what to do. Maybe Dad had stalked her. I imagined him laying into her, and she went as limp as my paper scrap. I wanted to rush out and find her, but I couldn't leave Kendall on his own. I started to cry, knuckling my eyes. I pressed harder until it hurt. I told myself to stop the silly snivelling. I wasn't a baby. I mustn't panic. Of course Dad hadn't found her. Maybe she'd simply got lost coming back from the pub. Mum had a hopeless sense of direction at the best of times, and now it was way after dark in a strange neighbourhood. Knowing Mum, she'd maybe even forgotten our address. She'd been stumbling around and around in her strappy sandals, cursing herself for being such a fool. She'd find us eventually. She'd be knocking at the door any minute. She'd rush in, laughing. But she didn't rush in. I listened for her footsteps. I opened the curtains and stared out at the street. I even left the door on the latch and rushed down to the corner just to see if there was any sign of her. Then I worried that someone might have slipped in and be after Kendall. I ran back and slammed the door shut and rushed into the bedroom. Kendall was still sleeping soundly in the middle of the bed, his arms and legs splayed out so he took up nearly all the space. There was no one hovering over him. I checked behind the door, the wardrobe, even under the bed. I knew I was acting crazy. I couldn't help it. I went back into the kitchen and tried to make a cup of tea to calm myself. I was so jumpy. I splashed cold water all down my front as I filled the kettle. It was midnight. Something must have happened to Mum. So, what would happen to Kendall and me? I started crying again as the kettle boiled. I was making such a noise that I didn't hear the door. I didn't hear footsteps. Then Mum was in the kitchen, right in front of me. "Mum!" I gasped, pouring water everywhere. "Watch out, you'll scald yourself, you silly girl," said Mum. "Here, let me. I could do with a cup or two." "Where have you been? It's gone midnight." "So? Who am I, flipping Cinderella?" said Mum, peering down at her sandals. "Are these glass slippers I see before me?" She didn't exactly slur her words, but she was acting silly. "You've been down the pub drinking. Well, I've been worrying myself sick, wondering where you are." Mum started laughing. "You sound so funny, Janie, like you're my mum." "It's not funny. I was so scared Dad had got you," I cried. I started trying to hit her like Kendall in a tantrum. "Hey, hey, hey," said Mum. She caught hold of my wrists and pulled me close. She wrapped her arms around me. "I'm so sorry, babe. I didn't realise. You always act so grown up, but there's no need to be scared about your dad, not anymore. We're never ever going to see him again. We're new people now, remember, Lola Rose? I'm Lady Luck, and guess what? We're in luck, darling. I've got a job." "A job? What kind of job could Mum have got at midnight, for goodness sake? For badness sake. That's why I was such ages, darling. I thought you'd be fast asleep, cuddled up with Kendall. I don't want my girl worried, my lovely Lola Rose." Mum stroked my hair and gave me a big kiss. She was a little bit drunk, but it didn't matter. She never really got really scary like Dad. "Tell me about this job, Mum," I said. "I'm going to be a bar girl, plus help out with meals at lunchtime." I relaxed against her. "You've got a job in the pub?" "Yeah, it's only 5 minutes away. It'll be brilliant. I walked in to buy my fags and got talking to one of the guys behind the bar. He told me the manager needed more staff, so I thought, okay, go for it, girl." So I did. I saw the manager, Barry. He's ever so nice. He put me through my paces after he'd closed for the night. He says I'm a natural at pulling a good pint, and I can remember any number of orders, and I know all the different drinks. Well, I ought to, seeing as I grew up in a pub. I told Barry I didn't have a clue how to work the till. So he showed me, and of course I cocked it up at first, went all panicky. But he didn't shout. He just went over it again and again until I got it. He's a lovely guy, Barry, so gentle and yet manly with it. I went tense again. "You're not going to start a thing with this Barry, are you?" "Don't be daft, darling. He's got a wife, a nice woman, Lynn. She was kind too," Mum said, but with less enthusiasm. "Anyway, isn't it great? Job sorted, just like that, when I only nipped out for a packet of fags." Mum lit up a cigarette triumphantly. "Will it mean you're working evenings, Mum? You won't really mind, will you? You've babysat for Kendall heaps of times before. No bother. And it won't be every evening. My hours will vary. I don't have to start till midday, though, which will be great. I'll be here to give you guys breakfast and get you off to school. Well, when you get to school. That's next on the agenda." Chapter 8. School. I wish we didn't have to go to any school. I hadn't always got on at my old school. The lessons were okay. It just took me ages to find a friend. When my dad was in prison, some of the other kids kept picking on me. Then, when he came out, Dad got into fights with their dads, and then they started fighting me. If it was hard for me, it would be hopeless for Kendall. He got trampled on in his reception class. "I've been to school, Mum," he said. "I don't need to go again." "Yeah, right. I've been to school, Mum." I said, "Do we really have to go?" "Oh, come on, Lola Rose, don't be so daft. You've got to go to school. It's the law. Now, there's a nice primary down by the church. The kids wear a very smart uniform. We'll nip down there tomorrow morning, get you both registered," said Mum. It wasn't that simple. We didn't even get to see the head teacher because we didn't have a proper appointment. They told us we didn't have a hope of getting into the school as all the classes were full. They had a long waiting list of children desperate to go there. You had to have a sibling already registered and live in the right catchment area, and be a regular worshipper at the church. Well, that's that then, said Mum, as we walked out. Hooray, said Kendall, skipping. No, school. Not that school, sweetheart. I wouldn't want to send you there anyway. All those poncy rules and regulations. We'll find you another better school. No bother. It was a lot of bother. Mum got a list of the local schools from the public library and started phoning around. They were nearly all full up. One said they could take Kendall, but not me. Another said their reception class was too big already, but they had room for me. The schools were miles apart, so that was no good. I'd have to collect Kendall after school. Now Mum was working down the pub. Lark Rise Primary was right at the bottom of the list. Mum got straight through to the head teacher, Miss Balsam. Yes, we've got places, Mrs. Luck. Bring Lola, Rose and Kendall along as soon as you like, she said. There, said Mum triumphantly. I knew our luck would last. Lark Rise. Doesn't that sound pretty, like a little country village school? She walked us to Lark Rise, holding our hands, singing, Follow, 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 follow the Lark Rise road. She even started doing that little Wizard of Oz dance, pointing her feet and sashaying left and right. She tried to get us to do the dance too, but I felt a fool and wouldn't, and Kendall tried hard but couldn't. Even Mum stopped dancing when we turned into Lark Rise Road. There were no larks rising, only the scabbiest one-legged pigeons pecked at pizza crusts in the gutter. Big council flats towered above us in every direction, grey and bleak, water stains running down the brick as if every window eye was weeping. We hadn't noticed the wind before, but now it blew coldly in our faces and whirled the litter round our ankles. We had to pick our way carefully through sprinklings of chips and crumpled cans and dog mess. Mum gripped Kendall's hand firmly, steering him this way and that. My throat went dry. I hugged myself tight inside my furry denim jacket. It looked like I was going to have to keep it on all day, or else it would get nicked. The school looked exactly like a prison. It was an ugly, squat, yellow brick building with barbed wire hooked along the top of the wall and 2 padlocks on the iron bars of the gates. Is that to keep people out or the kids in? Mum said, wavering. She gave the gates a little rattle. How do we get in, for God's sake? Maybe this isn't such a good idea. Kendall jumped up and pressed a button on the wall. The intercom crackled into action. We all took a step backwards. Quick, let's go, I said. Mum dithered. A mystery voice said, Yes, can I help you? Mum cleared her throat and spoke to the brick wall. My name's Victoria Luck. I'm here with my 2 children, Lola Rose and Kendall. I couldn't hear our new names enough times. It made us feel better. Mum swept her hair out of her white leather collar. I folded my arms and stuck my fingers up inside my sleeves, stroking the fur lining. Kendall squared his tiny shoulders in his hip jacket. Kendall mint cake, he said. He looked at us expectantly. He'd made the same joke 1,001 times, but we smiled all the same. Do come in, said the voice. There was a little buzzing sound, and a side gate opened all by itself. It's like that fairy tale. You know, Beauty and the Beast, I said. You be Beauty, I'll be the Beast, said Kendall, pulling what he hoped was a hideous face. He hobbled lopsidedly across the playground. Will you stop that, Kendall? They'll think you've got disabilities, said Mum. Oh, God, I'm dying for a fag. Do you think they'd mind? You can't, Mum. But when we were shown into Miss Balsam's office, we smelled a very familiar stale fug. I saw an overflowing ashtray on her desk. She saw me staring at it and emptied it quickly into her waste paper basket. Sorry, horrible habit, she said. Never start smoking, Lola Rose. You'll end up looking like a smoked haddock, just like me. She did look a little fishy, her beady eyes magnified by the thick lenses of her glasses, and her long pale face was a bit yellowy. She wasn't a bit pretty, but she didn't seem to care. She had a very posh voice, but she didn't act posh, and her clothes certainly weren't posh. She was wearing comfy old trousers and a creased jacket with bulging pockets. She saw Mum looking longingly at the ashtray and patted her pocket. Shall we have a cigarette, Mrs. Luck, and blow being a bad influence on the children? She took out a packet of cigarettes and a novelty lighter in the shape of a fish. You flicked the head and the flame flared inside the jaws. Is that a shark? Kendall asked. It doesn't look quite fierce enough for a shark, said Mrs. Balsam. I love sharks. I don't care if they're fierce. I'm not a bit scared of sharks, am I, Mum? Shh, now, Kendall, said Mum. No, it's okay. I want to have a chat with both the children. I've seen lots of sharks. They're my friends, but silly old Janie's scared of them. Mum and I froze, but Miss Balsam acted like she hadn't even noticed he'd called me by the wrong name. Could that possibly be a shark peeping out of your super cool jacket, Kendall? She asked. Yes, it's George II. I had another George, but he ran away. Swam away, said Miss Balsam. She looked at me. I gather you don't care for sharks, Lola Rose. I can't stick them, I said. So, what are you interested in? I shifted in my seat. What do you like doing best? My scrapbook. Mum sighed. No, Lola Rose, she means hobbies. Well, You like crayoning, and I've shown you how to do a little dance routine, haven't I? What do you put in your scrapbook? Miss Balsam persisted. Do you cut out pictures of your favourite band and football team? I like cutting out all different bits and making it all look good on the page, I said. Sometimes she goes a bit nuts and gives ladies animal heads and has a giant girl standing on the roof of a building, says Mum, shaking her head. Collage, says Mrs. Balsam. That's what it's called. Oh, great. We'll do some collage work in art. I'll be taking you for art, Lola rose. I'm helping out because we're a few teachers short. Right, I just need to take down a few details. Which was your last school? I swallowed. I tried to think of a name. Any name. It was London Primary, I said stupidly. London Park Primary, Mum said quickly. Miss Balsam wrote it down, but she frowned a little. Maybe we weren't fooling her. I could just as easily have said Mickey Mouse made up school. And what about Kendall? Was he in the reception class at London Park? She asked. Yes, said Mum. No, said Kendall, looking astonished. I'm at Molesfield Infants, and I've got a blazer with a mole and a field on the badge. Shut up, Kendall, I said. I looked at Miss Balsam. He's making it up. He does it all the time, doesn't he, Mum? Yes, said Mum helplessly, drawing deeply on her cigarette. Miss Balsam put down her pen and looked straight at me. We all make things up, when it's necessary, Lola rose. Or we simply keep quiet about things. I keep quiet about things. For instance, my lovely school might very well be closed down at the end of the school year, because the silly inspectors feel we should be doing much better. We're on emergency measures at the moment. Ah, I wondered how come you had spare places for the kids, said Mum. So if the school's going to close, there's not much point my two starting here, is there? I'm determined we're not going to close, said Miss Balsam. I'm very proud of my school, and my staff, and my wonderful pupils. They come from all different backgrounds, and yet I like to feel we all fit together as a family. We're used to refugee children, and others from troubled backgrounds, Mrs. Luck. We don't always dot every I and cross every T in our paperwork because we're too busy to pry into people's private affairs. She picked up her form and tossed it into the waste paper basket with the cigarette butts. Mum smiled and raised her eyebrows at me. There now. Isn't that lucky, she said. That's very understanding of you, Miss Balsam. So can I leave the kids with you today? Certainly. I'll take them along to their classes, unless you'd like to come with Kendall to settle him in. Lola Rose might be better. Our Kendall tends to play up a bit with me. Mum gave us both a quick kiss and then dashed off with an airy wave before we could take in she was abandoning us. Kendall's mouth wobbled. The corners turned tight down. I had to fight not to cry myself. It was okay for Mum. She didn't have to stick it out at this scary new school with all these tough kids who would hate us because we were new and weird. But it wasn't scary at all. Miss Balsam let me hold Kendall's hand tight while she took us into the reception class. There were loads of little kids messing around, finger painting, bashing bricks, kneading red dough and trooping in and out of a little playhouse. A big girl with long fair hair and a ponytail and dungarees was having a funny paintbrush fight with a scabby little boy with a bristly head. I thought she was an older sister like me, but it turned out she was Miss Denby, the teacher. She gave Kendall a big smile, as if she'd known him all her life. Hello, darling. What's your name then? Kendall swallowed and looked at me, scared to speak in case he said something wrong again. His name's Kendall, I announced. The scabby boy sniggered. A plump little girl with a topknot stuck her chin out. I'm Kendall, she said. Kendall's a girl's name, said Scabby. He laughed. The other boys did too. It's a girl's name and a boy's name. Didn't you know that? Said Miss Denby. Welcome to our class, Kendall. What would you like to do? How about finger painting? Kendall's hand screwed itself up inside mine. He hates getting his hands dirty. How about the dough? Said Miss Denby. Kendall shuddered at the thought of getting it up his fingernails. He wants to build a big tower of bricks, I suggested. I knew he should make a safe boy's choice. Kendall was staring at the playhouse. I don't want to do bricks, he said. I want to go in that little house with George. I held my breath, waiting for the scabby kid to sneer. Surprisingly, no one seemed to think it silly to go and play house. When I led Kendall over, I found 2 little boys and 1 little girl crouched inside, having a tea party. Do you want tea or coffee? The little girl asked, laying a place for Kendall with her blue plastic tea set. Coffee, black, and a ciggy too, said Kendall. Coming right up, she said, pouring imaginary coffee and lighting an invisible cigarette for him. Kendall took it from her and inhaled thin air with appreciation. Thanks, babe, he said. Miss Denby and Miss Balsam and I were in silent stitches. Miss Denby gave me a thumbs-up sign. I nodded and went off with Miss Balsam. She patted my shoulder. There, he's settled in already, she said. We both knew it might not be so easy for me. I felt sick when we walked into the Year 6 classroom. I thought I was quite tall, but lots of the girls were much bigger than me, and so grown up. They wore tight designer tops that showed their figures, and they had elaborate plaited hairstyles and nose rings and fantastic fingernails. Okay, not all the girls. There were a couple of little scruffy, twitchy girls who looked sad. Then there were a clump of girls with big headscarves who all sat together. There was another Asian girl sitting by herself. She had her hair in long, glossy plait, and when she grinned, she had a gap in her front teeth. She was grinning at me. She came up to me at playtime. "I love your jacket," she said, stroking it admiringly. "I'm Harpreet. What's your name again?" "Lola?" "Lola Rose. Cool name." I didn't need to worry. I wasn't sad old Janie who got picked on. I wasn't her. I wasn't sad. I was cool Lola Rose in her fantastic furry jacket. And that is where we will leave part 3 of Lola Rose by Jacqueline Wilson. I'll be back soon with the next part of this fantastic story and lots more stories and videos coming your way very soon. If you'd like to subscribe or hit a like, that's always appreciated. Thanks for listening, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.